I ended up spending over 10 grand on an 80s classic sports car. A mechanic from a repair shop in Honglong River sent me some photos of the car and mentioned it was sitting there, waiting for a new owner. The previous owner had initially brought it in for restoration, but as the repair costs kept piling up, they decided to just hand the car over to the shop owner as payment for labor. The mechanic assured me that the engine was solid and that the car would start right up. After hearing this, I didn't waste any time and made the decision to buy it. I spent another 6 grand to finalize the deal, but to be honest, for a classic sports car from the 80s, the price seemed more than fair. Sure, there was some body damage, but for that price, I couldn't pass it up. The journey to get it back home was long, over 1,600 kilometers. The driver had a tough time transporting it, and each stop was a hassle. At every checkpoint, the driver had to get out, check the car, and make sure everything was secure. After a long haul, though, the car finally made it to the garage. Once it arrived, I was ready to dive in and start working on it. My goal was to get it up and running the same day, but the driver had done a serious job of getting it home, and I had to give credit where credit was due. Getting the car back to the shop took way more effort than I expected, but by the next day, it was sitting in my garage, ready for some TLC. The car is a 1989 model, and it's definitely seen better days. But for the price I paid, I can't complain. The engine is from 1999, so it's still pretty solid. It's a manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, just the way I like it. The engine hadn't been started in quite a while though, so I knew I needed to take some precautions before firing it up. I added some oil into the engine to make sure nothing would seize up. Next, I installed a fresh new battery, and I decided to take a look at the spark plugs and intake manifold. It didn't take long to see that the spark plugs were in bad shape, so I had to replace them. Once I did that, I was able to get the engine turning over again. With some more cleaning and a few tweaks here and there, I'm confident this old beauty is going to be running like a dream in no time. I've got big plans for this car. It's a project, sure, but one that I'm excited to take on. With a little time and a lot of elbow grease, this old sports car is going to turn heads once again. I didn't hesitate and decided to replace everything with brand new parts. The engine was fully checked and reassembled, and after making sure everything was in order, I moved on to the next step. I checked the oil to make sure it was in good condition, and once that was cleared, it was time to try starting the engine. Although the video might only be 6 or 7 minutes long, it actually took a couple of days to get everything in working order. After a few hours of hard work, we finally swapped out the old fuel pump. That's the thing with classic cars, they're like a puzzle. Every part, no matter how small, requires attention, and there are always little issues that pop up. That's why these projects can take a while to finish, and sometimes the updates come slowly. But after a lot of tinkering, we finally got the car to start. We gave it some gas, and after a couple of tries, it was turning over. The engine was showing signs of life. We kept the gas going to make sure the idle would stay steady. It wasn't perfect, but we were getting there. Of course, it's an old car, so it's got its share of problems. One of the big ones? The clutch. It's a Japanese car, and the clutch pump is completely shot. But that's just part of restoring a car like this. Every old car has issues to work through, and you just have to keep fixing them bit by bit. Luckily, I've got new parts on the way, so we'll get it back to full working condition soon enough. Now that summer is here, washing the car has become a lot easier, and it's the perfect time to give it a good clean. This classic 80s sports car has been a real project, but after a few days of hard work, it's finally starting to come together. The car hadn't been washed in years, so the dirt and grime had built up pretty thick. But after all the effort we've put into it, it's looking much better now, and I'm starting to see the beauty in this old ride once again. If you ever come across a car in a movie that looks like mine, there's a good chance it's this one. And as for my journey with this car, well, it's far from over. This story's just beginning.